My wife sneered, "You're just my ATM, nothing more." I just nodded. Then I canceled all her cards. 3 days later, she called me from the mall screaming. So I'm 34 male, been running my electrical contracting business for 8 years. Started from absolute zero, built it up to 6 employees, and we handle everything from strip malls to high-end commercial builds across 3 states. Not bragging, just context for what comes next. My wife Jessica, 29 female. We've been together 6 years, married for 3. She works part-time at Sephora downtown, and I use works loosely here. 20 hours a week max, basically playing with makeup samples and gossiping with her coworkers. Her monthly take-home is about $800 after taxes, but she calls it her passion project. Here's how our setup worked. I handled everything that required actual money: mortgage, utilities, groceries, her car payment, insurance, credit cards. She handled the aesthetic vision of our life, which apparently meant spending my money on whatever caught her eye on Instagram. Throw pillows, candles, skincare products that promised to reverse aging, but mostly just reversed my bank balance. Now, Jessica's got this sister Brittany. Think Jessica, but with twice the entitlement and half the brain cells. Brittany's been divorced twice, lives in a condo her parents pay for, and spends her days giving relationship advice on Facebook like she's Dr. Phil. Every time she visits, Jessica comes away with fresh ideas about what I should be buying her. The whole dynamic was this constant stream of Brittany dropping hints. Brittany says successful husbands invest in their wives' happiness, Jessica would say, usually while showing me some $800 throw pillows. Brittany also got divorced twice, I'd point out. That's because her husbands didn't appreciate her worth. Sure, Jessica. That's definitely why. Things went to hell on a regular Tuesday. I got home around 7 p.m. Had been dealing with a commercial rewiring job that turned into a complete nightmare. Faulty panels, code violations, the client changing specs halfway through. I was mentally and physically drained, looking forward to a quiet evening. Instead, Jessica's sprawled on our couch with her MacBook, surrounded by home design magazines like she's about to flip the Pentagon. Brittany's there too, because of course she is. Babe, look at this kitchen island. It's only $12,000, and this backsplash would completely transform our space. I'm still in my work clothes, electrical tape stuck to my shirt, trying to process why anyone needs a $12,000 kitchen island. Jess, maybe we should slow down on the spending. The supply chain issues are killing my margins right now. Brittany snorted into her drink. Here we go with the money lecture. Jessica didn't even look up from her screen, just waved her hand like I was a waiter interrupting her important work. Martin, you always figure out the money stuff. That's your thing. This is an investment in our home's value. Investment? It's a piece of furniture. And 12 grand could cover payroll for... God, Martin, Brittany interrupted. Do you ever talk about anything besides work and money? Jessica deserves nice things. I stared at this chick who'd never worked a real job in her life, lecturing me about what my wife deserved. Jessica finally looked at me, and I saw something in her expression that I'd been ignoring for months. This smirk that said I was being unreasonable for questioning her financial wisdom. You worry too much about money. Just do what you do best and keep the cash flowing. That's basically your whole purpose anyway. The room went completely silent. Brittany nodded approvingly like Jessica had just delivered the Gettysburg Address. Excuse me? I said. Jessica shrugged and went back to scrolling. You're really good at making money. I'm really good at making our life beautiful. It works out perfectly. Then she said the thing that's been stuck in my head for days. I mean, you're basically my ATM with legs. As long as you keep dispensing cash, we're golden. Brittany laughed. ATM with legs. I'm stealing that. The room went completely silent except for Brittany's cackling. Jessica said it so casually, like commenting on the weather. No malice, no awareness that she'd just reduced our entire relationship to a financial transaction. And her sister was treating it like comedy gold. I didn't react. I just nodded. Got it. Exactly. So about that kitchen island. I went upstairs and took the longest shower of my life. When I came back down, they were both asleep on the couch. Laptop still open to some $8,000 dining table. That night, I lay awake doing math. 6 years of 60-hour weeks. Missing family events for emergency calls. Postponing my own goals so she could have her dream lifestyle. All of it apparently boiling down to one simple function. Dispense cash on demand. By morning, I had a plan. And it wasn't about couples counseling or heart-to-heart conversations. Those work when both people see a problem. Jessica didn't see a problem. She saw a perfectly functioning system where I generated money and she spent it. Time to introduce some system updates. But first, I needed to call my old man. My dad Bill is 62 years old and built like a brick house that does CrossFit. Retired from running heavy equipment for the city, spent 38 years operating cranes and bulldozers. He's got hands that could crush walnuts and zero patience for nonsense. More importantly, he went through his own financial nightmare with my stepmom about 15 years ago. She nearly drained his bank account faster than a busted radiator. Wednesday morning after Jessica left for her job, I called him. Dad, I need some advice. Shoot. I told him about the ATM comment. He listened without interrupting, which is how I knew he was taking this seriously. Son, he said when I finished, you remember what happened with Linda? Linda was my stepmom. She nearly cleaned him out before he got wise. Yeah. You know what I learned? When someone shows you who they really are, you don't negotiate with them. You respond accordingly. What are you thinking? I explained my plan to cut off her credit access. Dad was quiet for a long moment. That's a good start. But you need to document everything. When this goes sideways, and it will go sideways, you'll need proof. You think it'll get that bad? Son, you just told me your wife called you an ATM with legs, and her sister thought it was hilarious. These aren't women who are going to accept financial boundaries quietly. He was right. I should have known better. Tell you what, Dad continued. I'm coming over this weekend. Need to see your electrical panel anyway. While I'm there, maybe we can have a chat with Jessica about adult responsibilities. This is how Dad works. He doesn't offer emotional support. He offers solutions. And that's what I needed. Thanks, Dad. Don't thank me yet. After hanging up, I opened my laptop at the kitchen table and started methodically dismantling Jessica's financial ecosystem. Called Amex first. Gave them her card number, which I knew by heart from all the purchase notifications. They canceled it immediately. Chase was next. Same script. Suspicious activity. Need to cancel this card. Done. The store cards were even easier. Just logged into each account online and removed her as an authorized user. Click, click, goodbye. Left her personal debit card alone. That was connected to her own checking account where her $800 paycheck went. All of it. By noon, Jessica's spending power had been reduced to whatever cash she had in her purse and her part-time job income. I felt like a surgeon removing a tumor, except the tumor had been buying $200 candles and calling it home improvement. Meanwhile, I had the most productive afternoon at work in months. Closed a $30,000 commercial job, negotiated better rates with my supplier, even had time for a proper lunch break. Amazing what happens when you're not constantly stressed about someone else's spending habits. Friday afternoon was Jessica's weekly shopping ritual. She'd hit the mall with Brittany, grab overpriced coffee, then come home with shopping bags and stories about all the amazing finds she'd discovered. I was home early, reviewing job estimates at the kitchen table when my phone started buzzing. 3:50 p.m. right on schedule. She hung up after 2 rings, then immediately called back. I let it go to voicemail. Called again, and again. On the 5th call, I picked up. Martin, what the heck did you do to my cards? I could hear mall noise in the background, that particular sound of public humiliation echoing off the food court tiles, plus Brittany's voice in the background. Tell him he can't do this. Hey babe, what's wrong? Don't hey babe me. None of my cards are working. I'm standing in Nordstrom looking like some kind of deadbeat, and Brittany's trying to console me. Oh, that's weird. Which card? All of them. What did you do? I canceled them. Silence. Then, you what? Canceled your credit cards. You know, ATM maintenance. I could practically hear her brain short-circuiting while Brittany screeched in the background. You can't just cancel my cards? Actually, they're my cards. You were just an authorized user. But don't worry, you still have your checking account. What's your balance these days? 700? 800? The mall noise got quieter. She was probably walking outside so people couldn't hear her meltdown. Martin, this isn't funny. I'm completely humiliated. Brittany is staring at me like I'm pathetic. Turn them back on right now. Nope. She hung up on me. I finished my estimates, ordered pizza, and waited for the real show to begin. Jessica and Brittany got home around 7 p.m. I heard 2 car doors slam, then hushed arguing on the front porch before they came inside. Jessica stormed into the kitchen with Brittany right behind her, both looking like they'd spent the afternoon planning a military campaign. We need to talk. Now, Jessica announced. Brittany positioned herself by the counter with her arms crossed, playing backup intimidation. This is completely unacceptable, Martin. I looked up from my laptop. Brittany, this is between me and my wife. Jessica's my sister. Her problems are my problems. Then maybe you should help her find a real job instead of encouraging her to spend money she didn't earn. Brittany's face went red. She contributes to this marriage in ways you obviously don't appreciate. Such as? She makes this place a home. She supports you emotionally. She... When? I interrupted. When has Jessica supported me emotionally? Give me one specific example. They looked at each other. I could see Brittany scrambling for an answer. She listens when you complain about work, Jessica finally said. Jessica, when was the last time you asked me about a specific project? Another pause. Brittany jumped in with a deflection play. The point is, you can't just cut her off financially because your feelings got hurt. My feelings didn't get hurt. I just started taking Jessica at face value. What does that mean? Jessica demanded. It means if you see me as an ATM, I'm going to start acting like one. And ATMs don't dispense cash to people without accounts. Brittany scoffed. That's the most childish thing I've ever heard. She was joking. Were you joking, Jessica? Jessica's mouth opened and closed. Finally, I was frustrated about the kitchen thing. I didn't mean it literally. How did you mean it? I meant we have different roles. You handle finances, I handle everything else. What everything else? The silence stretched. Brittany filled it. She shouldn't have to justify her worth to you. A real man would want to provide for his wife. A real woman would contribute something besides opinions about throw pillows. Brittany's eyes blazed. You're financially controlling her. I'm not controlling anything. Jessica can spend all the money she wants. Just her own money. She doesn't make enough, Brittany shouted. Then her expenses aren't realistic. Jessica tried tears next. Martin, I love you. I don't want money to ruin our marriage. It's not ruining our marriage, Jessica. It's revealing what our marriage actually is. Brittany switched tactics. You know what your problem is, Martin? You think money makes you powerful. But Jessica could find someone who'd appreciate her tomorrow. Thousands of men dream about someone like her. I laughed. She's welcome to try. But she'll have to do it on her own dime. I closed my laptop and headed for the stairs. Jessica grabbed my arm. Where are you going? To bed. Early job tomorrow. We're not done talking. I looked at her hand on my arm, then at Brittany's smug face. Yeah, we are. That night they stayed up until 3 a.m., whispering and plotting in the living room. Saturday morning, my old man showed up at 8 a.m. sharp with his toolbox and a thermos of coffee that could strip paint. Morning, son. Where's the wife? Still asleep. Her and her sister were up late planning my destruction. Dad nodded like this was perfectly normal. Good. Gives us time to talk. We went down to the basement where my electrical panel was. Dad spent about 5 minutes actually checking the wiring, then turned to me. This is solid work. You know your trade. He closed his toolbox. Now, about your wife situation. They're going to escalate. Women like this don't back down when you cut off their supply. They get vindictive. What do you think they'll try? Probably start with manipulation. When that doesn't work, they'll try to turn people against you. When that doesn't work. He paused. They'll try to destroy you. You really think it'll get that bad? Son, I've seen what desperate, entitled women do when their gravy train stops. Document everything. You're going to need proof. Just then we heard footsteps upstairs. Jessica's voice calling my name, then talking to someone. Probably Brittany on the phone. We went upstairs. Jessica was in the kitchen in her robe, hair a mess, phone pressed to her ear. I don't care what you have to do. Find something that... She saw us and quickly hung up. Hi, Bill. Jessica. Dad nodded politely. Heard you've been having some financial difficulties. She paused. Martin told you that? It's really between me and him. Dad set his coffee down on the counter and gave her a look that could freeze lava. When you start treating my son like an ATM, it becomes my business too. Jessica's mouth fell open. I never. Don't. Dad's voice cut through her protest like a chainsaw. I raised a man who works 60 hours a week to build something meaningful. If you can't appreciate that, plenty of other women will. Jessica looked at me for support. I just shrugged. Now, Dad continued, Martin's being generous letting you figure this out on your own. But if you try any stupid nonsense, you'll be dealing with me. Understood? Jessica nodded quickly. Good talk, Dad said, picking up his coffee. Martin, walk me to my truck. Outside, he handed me a business card. Buddy of mine from the union. Best investigator in the state. If they try anything shady, give him a call. You think they will? Son, that woman just hung up on someone mid-sentence when she saw us. She's already plotting something. He was absolutely right. The following week was psychological warfare disguised as domestic life. Jessica mastered the art of being a martyr within my eyeline. She'd stand in front of the open fridge sighing dramatically about having nothing decent to eat. She'd hold up perfectly fine clothes and announce they were falling apart, but she couldn't afford replacements. The Oscar-worthy performance was when she ran out of her $100 face cream and spent an entire evening researching drugstore alternatives, making sure I could hear her muttering about budget skincare. But I knew she was planning something bigger when Brittany stopped coming by. Those two were thick as thieves, and suddenly Brittany was nowhere to be found. Either they were fighting or they were planning something. Wednesday night, Jessica actually cooked dinner. First time in probably 1 year. Pasta and salad, but she set the table with our good dishes and lit a candle. "This is nice," I said, because it actually was. "I've been thinking about what you said, about being partners. I want to contribute more. Maybe I could help with your business? Answer phones? Do bookkeeping?" I almost choked on my drink. Jessica doing books? She'd never balanced a checkbook in her life. But I played along. "I've got that covered, but thanks." "What if I worked more hours at Sephora? Made it a real career? That would be great." She reached across the table and touched my hand. "I know I haven't been the best partner. I took your generosity for granted." For about 30 seconds, I actually considered that maybe she'd learned something. Maybe this whole thing had been a wake-up call. "I love you, Martin. I don't want something stupid like money to destroy us." We had the best evening we'd had in months. Watched a movie, talked like normal people, and went to bed without any drama. I fell asleep thinking maybe I'd gotten through to her. Wrong. Again. Thursday morning, I was on a job site installing new panels in a retail complex when my phone started buzzing. Bank alerts, one after another. My blood went cold as I opened the first one. Someone had attempted a $4,000 transfer from my business checking account. Declined because they didn't have authorization. Jessica had never been added as a signatory on the business accounts, thank God. Another alert. Someone tried to use my personal credit card information for a $3,000 purchase at some luxury furniture store. The card company flagged it as suspicious, since it was being used online from an unfamiliar location while my physical card was in my wallet. Then another alert. She tried to access my business line of credit using stolen login credentials. Blocked and flagged immediately. I called the bank immediately, stepping away from my crew. "Mr. Brown, we've been trying to reach you. Multiple attempts to access your accounts from an unfamiliar location and device. The IP address traces to a Starbucks about 20 minutes from your home address. That would be the Starbucks where Jessica and Brittany had their regular sister meetings." What time did this happen? Between 10:15 and 11:45 a.m., right when Jessica would be having her regular coffee date, except today, Brittany probably brought her laptop, and they tried to rob me over lattes. "I need to speak with your fraud department immediately." It took 4 hours to sort everything out. New passwords, additional security protocols, fraud reports filed. The bank rep was professional, but I could tell she'd seen this exact scenario before. I called Dad from the parking lot. "They tried to rob your business accounts?" "Yep, from Brittany's usual Starbucks. Amateurs. If you're going to commit fraud, don't do it from your regular hangout spot." Dad sounded almost amused. "What's your next move?" "Confrontation tonight. I've got all the documentation." "Son, be careful. Cornered animals do desperate things." I drove home. Jessica was in the living room when I walked in, curled up on the couch watching some reality TV nonsense. She looked up with this innocent smile that would have fooled me 6 months ago. "Hey, babe, how was work?" I sat down across from her and pulled out my phone. "Someone tried to steal money from my business accounts today." Her grip tightened on the remote. "Oh no. Did they catch who did it?" "Multiple attempts from the Starbucks on 5th Street around 11 a.m. The color drained from her face. "That's weird. Maybe someone's been hacking." "Jessica, stop! I have the IP logs, timestamps, everything." Long pause while she calculated whether she could still talk her way out. "Okay, fine. I was desperate." "So you decided to commit felony fraud?" "Seriously? It's my business account. You could have destroyed my entire company." Tears started. "I don't know how to be poor," she screamed. There it was. The truth, finally. "You're not poor. You're just not rich on someone else's dime." My phone buzzed. Text from Dad. "How'd it go?" I typed back. She confessed. I looked up at her, who was crying into a throw pillow. "Where are you going?" she asked as I stood up. "To pack a bag. I'm staying at Dad's for a few days." "Martin, please, I'm sorry. I'll never do anything like this again. You tried to steal from my business. You could have ruined everything I've built." I packed a bag and drove to Dad's house. He was waiting on the porch with 2 sodas and a knowing look. Dad shook his head. "She's dumber than I thought." "You pressing charges?" "Definitely." "Good. This wasn't a marriage problem anymore. This was a criminal problem." I stayed at Dad's house for a week. We fell into a routine. Coffee at 5 a.m., him reading the paper while I reviewed job specs, then him dispensing wisdom while we worked on whatever project he had going. The thing about situations like this, Dad said while we were rebuilding his deck stairs. Is that people like your wife escalate when you don't back down? His phone rang before he could finish. Unknown number. Bill Brown. I could hear a woman's voice on the other end, high-pitched and agitated. Dad's expression went from neutral to stone cold. Ma'am, I don't know who you think you are, but if you ever call my house again to threaten my son, you'll be dealing with me personally. Are we clear? He hung up and looked at me. Brittany, what did she want? To inform me that you're financially abusing Jessica, and she's going to make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. That's when I knew we'd crossed into truly dangerous territory. You think she'd file a false police report? Dad set down his coffee and gave me a look that could strip rust. Son, desperate women do desperate things, and your wife is about to be very desperate. The next Thursday morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Brown? This is Detective Sarah with the County Sheriff's Office. I need to discuss a domestic violence report filed by your wife. My stomach dropped. I'm sorry, what? Jessica Brown claims you've been financially abusing her, and that she fears for her physical safety. She says when she tried to access family funds for necessities, you became violent and threatened her. Dad looked up from his newspaper. I put the call on speaker. Detective, that's completely false. Can you come in this afternoon to give a statement? Absolutely. But I should mention that Jessica attempted to fraudulently access my business accounts. I have documentation from the bank. Pause. Did you file a report about this alleged fraud? No. Why not? Because I was hoping we could work it out without involving law enforcement. Dad was already reaching for his keys. I'm coming with you. The police station was exactly as grim as expected. Detective Sarah was mid-30s with the tired eyes of someone who'd heard every sob story imaginable. Dad sat in the waiting area looking like he was ready to bail me out or bury bodies, whichever became necessary. Mr. Brown, your wife's story has some inconsistencies, Detective Sarah said, sliding a folder across the desk. Such as, she claims you cut off all her access to money, including her paycheck, but she has her own checking account with regular deposits. Correct. She says you've been preventing her from buying food, but your credit card shows regular grocery purchases continuing through last week. Also correct. She claims when she tried to access emergency funds from your joint account, you became physically violent. She tried to steal from my business accounts. I have the fraud report from my bank. The detective nodded slowly. Are you planning to press charges for the attempted fraud? Yes, I am. I filed the fraud report, provided all the bank documentation, and gave my statement. Detective Sarah said they'd be following up with Jessica about the false domestic violence claim. When I came out, Dad was leaning against the wall reading a hunting magazine like he was waiting for an oil change. On the drive home, he laid out the strategy. First, you never see Jessica alone again. Every conversation gets witnessed or recorded. Second, we document everything. Every text, every call, every interaction. Third, you move back home. Because if you stay at my place, she can claim you abandoned the marriage. If you go home and she acts crazy, you have evidence of her behavior. That evening, he came with me to the house. Jessica's car wasn't there, but Brittany's was. Perfect, Dad muttered. 2 birds, 1 stone. We walked in to find Brittany sitting at my kitchen table like she owned the place, papers spread out in front of her. Bill. Martin. She didn't look up. I was just helping Jessica organize her thoughts for the divorce attorney. Dad walked over and looked at the papers. Interesting. Looks like fraud to me. Brittany's head snapped up. What? Forging financial documents? Fabricating expenses? That's fraud. He picked up one of the papers. This credit card statement has been altered. You can't prove that. Dad smiled. Lady, I spent 40 years dealing with insurance fraud. I know doctored paperwork when I see it. He pulled out his phone. Mind if I take some pictures for the detective? Brittany started scrambling to collect the papers. Those are private documents. Not when they're forgeries being used to commit fraud. That's when Jessica walked in, took one look at the scene, and knew immediately that their master plan had just imploded. What's going on? Your sister just got caught red-handed fabricating evidence for your divorce case, I said. Jessica's face went white. Brittany, what did you do? I was trying to help you. By committing more felonies? Dad asked. Because falsifying documents in a legal proceeding is a serious crime. I watched my wife realize that her sister, her trusted advisor and partner in crime, had just made everything infinitely worse. Get out, Jessica said quietly. What? Brittany looked shocked. Get out of my house. Now. Jessica, I was trying to... Get out! Brittany grabbed her purse and stormed off, leaving Jessica standing in our kitchen, looking like she'd just realized she'd been getting advice from someone whose legal strategy came from reality shows. Dad looked at both of us. This is where I leave you two to sort out your mess. But Jessica, if you file another false report against my son, I'll personally make sure the prosecutor throws the book at you. Are we clear? She nodded. After Dad left, Jessica and I stood in our kitchen in silence. Martin, I never wanted it to go this far, she said finally. But it did. Can we fix this? I looked at the woman who'd tried to steal from my business, lied to the police about me, and conspired with her sister to fabricate evidence against me. No, Jessica. This can't be fixed anymore. Tom Bradley looked exactly like what you'd want in a divorce lawyer. Early 50s, expensive suit, shark eyes, and zero patience for sob stories. Dad had recommended him with the endorsement. He's meaner than a junkyard dog and twice as smart. Tom slid Jessica's lawyer's proposal across his desk with obvious amusement. She was asking for $6,000 a month in spousal support, the house, half my business assets, and compensation for emotional distress. She'd never made more than $800 a month in her life, but her lawyer was claiming she'd sacrificed career advancement to support my business growth. They were also alleging financial abuse and requesting damages for psychological trauma. The paperwork claimed my business was worth 3 times its actual value, and that Jessica had contributed to its success through emotional support and domestic management. I almost laughed. Her lawyer is Jennifer Walsh. She specializes in bleeding men dry during divorce proceedings. Tom explained our strategy. Present the facts. Jessica worked part-time by choice, had unlimited discretionary spending until she tried to commit fraud, attempted to defraud my business, filed false domestic violence charges, and conspired to fabricate evidence. We had documentation of everything. He opened another folder with even better news. Apparently, Brittany had been running her mouth around town about their strategy, and Tom's investigator had recorded her at a bar bragging about how they were going to take Martin for everything he's worth. She'd said this while intoxicated, in front of 12 witnesses, 2 weeks after the fraud attempt. My sister-in-law wasn't the brightest bulb. The mediation session was scheduled for the following Monday. Jessica showed up looking like she was attending her own funeral. What made me almost laugh was seeing Brittany in the hallway, obviously trying to coach Jessica right up until the last minute, until Tom informed them that she couldn't be there since she was a potential witness in a fraud case. Jennifer showed up carrying an expensive briefcase. She opened with the usual playbook about Jessica being financially dependent and making sacrifices to support my career advancement. Tom didn't blink. He methodically destroyed every argument with documentation. When Walsh claimed Jessica fulfilled the traditional role of supportive wife, Tom pointed out that she'd spent an average of $3,200 monthly on discretionary purchases while attempting to defraud my business accounts. When Walsh tried the financial abuse angle, Tom produced Jessica's exact words. "You're basically my ATM with legs," along with witness testimony from her sister who found it amusing. Furthermore, we have evidence that Jessica and her sister conspired to fabricate financial documents for this proceeding. Tom produced Dad's photos of the forged documents and recorded statements from Brittany, boasting about their fraudulent strategy. The mediator reviewed everything and warned Jessica that fabricating evidence was a felony. I didn't know. Brittany said she was helping. Your sister isn't licensed to practice law. We went back and forth for 6 hours. Walsh tried every angle, but it all crumbled under Tom's documentation. Finally, Walsh leaned over to whisper with Jessica for a long moment before announcing they wanted to revise their demands. Jessica ended up with 12 months of spousal support at $800 monthly, basically her own income level. She also had to sign a waiver acknowledging the fraud attempt in exchange for me not pursuing prosecution. The house would be sold with proceeds split 60-40 in my favor since I'd made the down payment and all mortgage payments. Jessica signed with shaking hands, mascara streaking down her face, whispering that it wasn't fair. Outside the courthouse, Dad was waiting by his truck, ready to hear how it went. When I told him she got basically nothing, he grinned and dropped another bomb. That investigator Tom hired had friends in the DA's office, and Brittany was getting charged with conspiracy to commit fraud and falsifying documents. They'd arrested her that morning while Jessica was in mediation. Your wife is going to lose her mind. Already did, from what I hear. Apparently, she showed up at the county jail screaming about bail money. The beautiful part was that she didn't have any money to bail out her sister. For the first time in months, I felt like laughing. The divorce was finalized 6 weeks later. Brittany got 6 months in county jail plus 2 years probation, which meant Jessica lost her primary enabler and co-conspirator. The news about Brittany's arrest spread through town fast. Turns out when you spend months loudly bragging about your genius plan to defraud someone, people remember those conversations. Jessica called me crying about it, which was rich. Martin, they arrested Brittany. She might go to jail. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. She was just trying to help me. I need to bail her out, but I don't have the money. Then I guess she sits in jail. Can you? No. Please, she's family. She's your family. My family is the reason she got caught. She hung up on me. I went back to rewiring a restaurant kitchen, feeling lighter than I had in years. The house sold in 6 weeks. Jessica moved in with some friend from work temporarily, then found a studio apartment in the sketchy part of town. Brittany got 6 months in county jail plus 2 years probation, which meant Jessica lost her primary enabler and co-conspirator. I heard through mutual friends that Jessica's new living situation was rough. Studio apartment with thin walls, upstairs neighbors who played music until 3 a.m., a parking lot where cars got broken into regularly. Her Instagram, which used to be a highlight reel of shopping halls and restaurant photos, went dark for months. When she started posting again, it was mostly generic inspirational quotes about new beginnings and finding your strength. But the real entertainment came from watching her try to maintain her old lifestyle on a part-time retail salary. Mutual friends reported sightings of Jessica at the grocery store, counting coupons like she was doing calculus, driving her car until the check engine light became a permanent Christmas decoration, and actually trying to return worn clothes to department stores for refund. From what I heard through mutual friends, she never quite adjusted to reality. The attitude remained, just with a smaller budget. 2 years post-divorce, life was pretty darn good. Business was booming, I'd bought a new truck, and I was dating Amelia, a nurse practitioner who insisted on paying for her own meals and drove a car she'd bought herself. I like a man who's got his stuff together, she'd said on our 3rd date, but I don't need anyone to take care of me financially. Revolutionary concept. We were at Malone's Steakhouse on a Saturday night. Amelia and I were celebrating her promotion to department supervisor and actually having a conversation. So tell me about this electrical contract you're bidding on, she said. I was explaining to her when I noticed commotion at the bar area. Someone was talking too loudly, getting animated with the bartender. Then I heard the voice. Do you know who my ex-husband is? He owns his own electrical company. My blood went cold. Amelia noticed my expression. What's wrong? Nothing. My ex-wife just walked in, and she looks pretty much tipsy. Amelia turned to look. Jessica was at the bar wearing what appeared to be her going-out outfit from 3 years ago. Tight dress that fit like she was trying to smuggle a watermelon, heels she could barely walk in, makeup applied with what looked like a putty knife. That's when I noticed Jessica wasn't alone. She was with some guy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Balding, nervous, constantly checking his phone. Martin Brown! Jessica's voice cut through the restaurant like a fire alarm. Martin! Every head in the place turned. Oh God, I muttered. Jessica stumbled over to our table, dragging her awkward date behind her. Martin! I can't believe you're here! At our place! This isn't our place! Who's this? She swayed slightly, glaring at Amelia. Oh, this is Amelia. Amelia, meet Jessica, my ex-wife. Amelia smiled. Nice to meet you. Nurse, right? I can always tell. Martin always did like smart women, until he realized smart women have opinions. Excuse me? The poor guy with Jessica grabbed her arm. Baby, maybe we should go back to the bar. She shrugged him off. No, I want to talk to my ex-husband. We have history. Jessica, you've had too much to drink. You should probably head home. Don't tell me what to do. You don't get to tell me what to do anymore. Her voice was getting louder. Other diners were staring. The manager was definitely heading our way now. I built a life with him, Jessica announced to the entire restaurant. 6 years! And he threw it all away over money. Jessica turned to Amelia. You know what he did? Cut off all my credit cards because I wanted to redecorate our kitchen. What kind of husband does that? The kind whose wife treats him like a bank, Amelia replied calmly. Jessica's eyes widened. Huh? You don't know anything about our marriage. I said what I said. Jessica's face went red. At least I didn't have to work 60 hours a week like some kind of slave. The entire restaurant went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Amelia set down her glass. Ma'am, I work 60 hours a week. Are you saying there's something wrong with having a work ethic? Jessica realized she'd just insulted a room full of working professionals, including her date, who worked at the post office. The manager finally reached our table. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Why? I'm not doing anything wrong. You're intoxicated. You're disturbing other guests. I'm just having a conversation with my ex-husband. Ma'am, please come with me. Jessica looked around the restaurant, finally realizing that everyone was staring at her with a mixture of disgust and secondhand embarrassment. Her date was backing away. She stood there swaying slightly, mascara starting to run, the full weight of her public humiliation finally sinking in. The manager and a security guard escorted her toward the exit. Her date followed at a distance, probably planning his escape route. As they reached the door, Jessica turned back one more time. "I could have been somebody," she shouted. Amelia took a sip of drink. "Yikes. I'm sorry about that." She raised her glass. "Here's to dodging bullets." We clinked glasses and went back to our dinner. Through the window, I could see Jessica arguing with her date in the parking lot. He got in his car and drove away, leaving her standing there in her too tight dress and broken heels. I felt nothing. Just gratitude that I wasn't the one who had to deal with her anymore. "So," Amelia said, cutting into her steak, "tell me more about that electrical contract." And that's the thing about moving on. Eventually, the past becomes just background noise, while you focus on building something actually worth having. Last I heard, Jessica's still working at Sephora, probably giving makeup advice to teenagers. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.